Right, good evening, Africa. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this show again tonight. This is the Africa Diaspora TV show. And thank you for being part of it on DSTV channel 328 and GoTV 73, channel 73. As always, your host here from the Johannesburg studio, Toya Abio is my name, and thank you for joining us on this show, the show that is about people, creativity, innovation, and development. Of course, on the part of what Africans are doing, even to further the cause of our mother continent. And so tonight we are having even another episode that we will be talking about what we as Africans are doing across the world and how we are improving the lot of our fellow Africans and even the lot of Africa generally. As always, we will have the time out where we will have a bit of what other Africans are doing in terms of our global news. So after this time out, I will be joining you with our studio guest. And thereafter, we'll unpack what we have for tonight with you. So thanks for joining us, and we'll be back after this time out.
There is only one Nigerian name on the official World Golf Ranking, and that name is Andrew Odo. A year after failing the Professional Golfers Association qualifying school in Ibadan, Nigeria, the 36-year-old golfer turned professional in 2004 and now lives in South Africa and is being called Nigeria's Tiger Woods. Andrew is ranked number 1 on the Nigeria Order of Merit and 42 on the Sunshine Tour in South Africa, and has won over 30 games in Nigeria and 5 outside the country. Although he ranks 1,454th on the world rankings, his biggest dream is to play at the PGA Tour and to be one of the best players in the world. You might remember the bread seller Olajumoke Orisanuga, who turned model after photobombing T.Y. Bello's shoot with international music star Tiny Temper. A year after her foray into the spotlight, Jumoke has decided to star in her own reality show, Olajumoke Sauce. Following in the footsteps of Omotola and Jim Iyke, Olajumoke wants to give the world access into her life and what she has planned. Although no release date has been revealed, you can catch up with her and her upcoming show on Instagram at Olajumoke World. Nigeria's Redeemers University is making its contribution to science. A set of Redeemers University scientists have built a kit that can detect Ebola and Lassa fever within 10 minutes. The scientists at the Africa Center of Excellence and Genomics of Infectious Diseases at the school in Osun State developed 2 rapid diagnosis kits that are reportedly able to detect the viruses, if present, in the human bodily fluids within 10 minutes. The drugs have been approved by the World Health Organization and the United States Food and Drug Agency. They have approved the Ebola virus RDT for use during epidemics. Celebrated Nigerian author Leslie Nneka Arima has been listed as one of the 20 names to have their short stories selected for the coveted O. Henry Short Story Anthology. Her story, titled Glory, has been published in Harper's Magazine and is already said to be a must-read. To find out more on her and her stories, visit her website www.larima.com. 19-year-old Somali-American Halima Aden has become the first black hijabi to be featured on Vogue magazine. The 5'5" teenager, who is signed to IMG Models, started to get recognition after she became the first contestant to wear a hijabi and burkini at the Miss Minnesota USA pageant in November last year. Since then, she has booked the cover of CR Fashion Book and walked in Kanye West's Season 5 show in February this year. Speaking to the magazine, Halima said, "When I'm walking the runway, I want people to see that yes, I'm wearing a hijabi, but I'm also a million other things. I want us to get to a place where we just see women."
Right, thank you and welcome. Thank you for staying with us. Right, now, Africans definitely are doing great things all over the world. Tonight, our guest will be talking to us about what many of us as Africans describe as diseases, as a disease rather. And let me ask our guest to even introduce himself before I get into this. So in the studio with me is Benny Onweremadu, right?
Onweremadu.
Onweremadu,
yes.
Right, thank you, Benny. And Benny is from the
Down Syndrome Foundation, Nigeria.
Right.
Though I also participate in Down Syndrome Africa,
right,
and Down Syndrome World Organization as well.
Right.
So And we are here today to talk about Down syndrome.
Right.
Yes.
And thank you for joining us, because it's something that we hardly talk about, or we don't even know how to handle. And especially even as Africans, I remember that even in the days of old, when some people had twins, they had to be killed. Until when we got better enlightenment around it, even around epilepsy and all that.
Yeah.
So the Down syndrome, part of the statistics that we understand from what you were sharing of here, is that about 1 in every 50 births, we have Down syndrome.
Yes.
What is Down syndrome?
Down syndrome is a chromosomal defect.
Right. Okay.
We will say every other person, you and I, they have extra chromosome than we do.
Okay.
So that makes them special.
Okay.
And that makes them, differentiates them from us. If you look at every child or every young person or any other human being with Down syndrome, you will see there is a special kind of resemblance that occurs with them, either black or white, European or African.
So are you saying that it's not just Africans that have Down syndrome?
No.
Okay. So it's not an African thing.
It's not an African thing, and it's not a bewitched person who has a child with Down syndrome, because this has become a norm among our people that says, oh, because a family has someone with Down syndrome, and that means there is a cause from somewhere. This is not the reality. This is not the truth. It is proven is completely a myth that is not right.
Okay. So how do we see Down syndrome play out in a person's life? How do we know that this is Down syndrome?
There are resemblance and also characteristics that you will find with a child with Down syndrome. First, there is the facial effect that you see that differentiates a child with Down syndrome. Most times, when a child is born, for some in Europe, I would say in UK, you find that doctors can identify a child with Down syndrome even while in the belly.
Okay.
So when in Africa, when a child is born with Down syndrome, it's easily identified. Though most of our doctors back in Africa can't actually identify or say this is what your child is. I don't want to use the word suffering, which is what they usually use. That's the word they use, but that's not the right word. Your child is born with Down syndrome. That doesn't mean the child is going to suffer. Yes, there are certain diseases that occur because of that extra chromosome, like heart defects. And these are things that we can help as an organization and as an entity that can, come in. You can come in and we can give you more advice and tell you how to help.
So now let's even get to that and say at the Down Syndrome Foundation in Nigeria, in South Africa, what do you guys do?
We sensitization, orientation, and also empowerment.
Okay.
Because we have younger people who are 18, 19, 20, who don't even been accepted. Inclusion, education. That's what we do. And as well, we also do policies and legacies and trying to put awareness, influence legislation and all that.
Let's talk about orientation, right? And especially as Africans. And how would you describe the level of orientation or awareness at this point in time in Africa from the work that you do across?
In South Africa, it's much better. Because over time they have come to that knowledge. They have accepted, yes, these are people with learning disability and or with Down syndrome. Yes, they've accepted. In Nigeria, we gradually getting there in Nigeria. In Ghana, in Liberia, in Ivory Coast, in Kenya, I mean, we are still coming, gradually. It's gradually getting there. But South Africa is in a good state at the moment because, I mean, you can easily get a child with Down syndrome into a school.
Okay, all right.
Be it a special school or a general school.
I was going to come to that. That means that even the society provides for the facilities that make it easier for families or people who have that deficiency, isn't it?
Yes.
And which these other countries do not have.
Exactly.
So in terms of stigmatization, what can we do about it?
An opportunity like this is one of the things we need.
Okay.
To tell our people that this is not a witchcraft.
It's not a disease.
It's not a disease.
It's not a disease.
It's not a disease.
Right. Okay.
This is a human being who is meant to live a full life.
Right. Okay.
We have in South Africa and in Europe as well, we have people who live an independent life.
Right. Okay.
Without anybody living 50, 60, 70 years.
Even with the Down syndrome.
With Down syndrome. And this is happening. So back to your question of sensitization, our people need to understand that this is not an evil that has been bestowed on a family.
Yeah.
No, that's completely wrong. That we should take that out. Okay. And then organizations like ours, Down Syndrome Foundation in Nigeria, Down Syndrome Association in Ghana, Down Syndrome Association in Ivory Coast, and the rest of Africa. What we need to do, what we are doing, is to keep telling people and also helping families, and mothers, most especially, because we've had so many cases. There is a case in Kenya that shocked the organizations over there, because a woman was sent away from the family and told not to come back because of the child, and the child was thrown away as well. And we've had such cases in Nigeria as well. Thank goodness of how South Africa has grown to a certain level that some of those cases we don't get them that much in South Africa. And coming back also to how we can also help is organizations like this in some African countries do not have resources to keep going every day.
And that's where I like to even pause a bit now and say, since we're talking to Africans in diaspora and saying, how can we as Africans in the diaspora assist and what can be done? Touch on these resources. What kind of resources are you talking about?
We need medicals.
Okay, medical supply. Doctors of African descent abroad can help. Okay. And give because most times, and this is one of the things as well, kids born with Down syndrome sometimes come out with heart defect, with eyesight problems, and these are things that most times can be corrected.
Obviously can be corrected. Yes, it can be corrected. And most times this is the fear of parents that, I have a child with learning disability, I have a child with Down syndrome. There are medical implications. Yes, even the so-called normal child has a medical needs. Yeah. So a child with Down syndrome has medical needs, and that's one of the things that we would want. Doctors abroad should help, or should come home and help these families. And help organizations.
Okay, but let's even be real now. Let's say I come as a doctor now and I want to be part of this. What resources or what kind of facilities exist for me to come from the UK? I mean, you do a bit of work, you do some work in other parts of the world, in Europe. You see the facilities there, and then the facilities in South Africa, and then the facilities in other parts like Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia. What kind of facilities are we talking about, even that will motivate, that will make someone to say, yes, I want to come home and volunteer? That's even from the medical point of view.
Yeah, okay. First, there are so much as a medical practitioner living abroad you can do for an organization like ours in any part of Africa.
Give me two of them. What can they do?
First, get in touch with the local organization.
Okay.
And they will give you numerous lists of kids who need help. One, medications are needed. Okay, and tests are needed.
So are we going to do this test via Skype? No, isn't.
You need
Okay,
to
so
come.
let's pause. So, I mean, it's a live show, as we always say to you. Please feel free to join us and call in. You might have questions for our guest tonight, Benny Onweremadu,
Yes.
right, from the Down Syndrome Foundation in Nigeria and also here in South Africa. So we're talking about what erroneously we describe as a disease, Down syndrome. And many of us do not even know how to do that or how to handle it. And like we said earlier on, 1 out of every 50 births. If you look at the population of Africa, for instance, imagine the number of people who are living with the syndrome. And we're talking about ways in which we can help as Africans, as people in the diaspora, because these are also Africans. These are people who are entitled to live normal lives even though they have those birth defects. And as we're hearing from the Down Syndrome Foundation, they can be corrected, they can be addressed, and you can play a part in this. So please join us even with the telephone calls, with the Skype calls, or even via the social media handles that are available to you to be part of this. So now, let me come back to Benny and say, I was saying, I mean, on a lighter note, are we going to run tests via Skype? I'm saying about the facilities. If I don't have the facilities to do that, what do we do in that space?
Okay, I suppose I will say this in all honesty and tell you, there are local hospitals who help. You know, if a medical practitioner who lives abroad wants to come home to, you know, help out, to volunteer, maybe for a week or 2 weeks or a month.
There are hospitals
that we liaise with that can also give you, I say, come in, help us, you know, with tests and all that, you know, and see what you can do for us. I mean, so many people, we've heard 1 or 2 doctors who come in and say, I can do this. Without even us knowing that this is what you can bring to the table. Right. So people can bring in their own initiatives and say, this is what we can offer. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Benny, let's pause there. The conversation is getting more interesting as we get along. We'll take a break at this point in time, and then we will resume the conversation thereafter, and then hopefully get to the next part of this program. But thank you for staying with us. We will be back after this time out.
ADTV, inspired to connect.
Yoruba music and lifestyle channel Tiwa TV. Ṣoríṣiríṣi lẹ fẹ́ gbọ́ ni.
Èmi fino, bàbá Ibo, bàbá Ọbago kì mọ́.
Orin àsìkò.
Bóyá ṣáàkì ti bọ̀bọ̀, ó fẹ́ ra bẹ́ntì bọ̀bọ̀, ó fẹ́ ra
ìgbàlódé, orin mẹ́wàá tàbí orin àgbà. Lórí First Yoruba music and lifestyle channel Tiwa nìkan lẹ ti máa rí gbogbo bẹ̀bẹ̀rázì lórí ó wà ń bẹ̀. Gbogbo nǹkan tẹ́ ń tà lórí. All these full packages and more can only be given to you by your one and only 24/7 Yoruba music and lifestyle channel Tiwa TV. Ẹ ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀rẹ̀ ọmọ.
For more inspiring stories, make sure you follow us on social media. The handles are @AfricanD_TV for Instagram and Twitter, and for Facebook, it's African Diaspora TV NG.
what's up, people? It's your homegirl, Bisola, and yes, it's the Celebrity Fans Challenge happening on the 10th of June, 2017. Yes, at Ikeja City Mall, 5 p.m. Do you love football? You ready to kick it with us? There's gonna be lots of jollof rice, lots of music, lots of comedy. Jollof rice from Nigeria, not Senegal, people. Come on, turn up. It's your girl, Bisola, and I'm gonna be there live. It's the mainland invasion. Boom.
When others quit, we reinforce. When they cease to impress your TV screens, we rekindle television content. They dwell in the present. We see the future. They try too, but they cannot fit in our shoes. This is who we are. Deal with it.
Planet TV, Africa's most interactive 24-hour channel, reaching millions of viewers all over the continent on the DSTV and GoTV platform, invites prospective brands to be part of this new wave in television broadcast. For sponsorship and alternative advertisement placement, kindly contact Trending Media Africa on +234 706 945 2149 or +234 805 523 0403 or +234 813 956 1699 or email info@trendingmediaafrica.com. Planet TV. Own it.
Planet TV brings you one of the awesomest chart shows. You know what we like to say, if it's big and you listen to it, you can definitely catch it right here on Volume 30. Every Saturday evening from 7 to 10 p.m. Central African Time on DSTV Channel 328 and GoTV Channel 73. Planet TV, your future, your passion, your now. Own it.
ADTV, inspired to connect.
Right, thank you for joining us and keeping with us even on the Africa Diaspora TV show. And so our guest in the studio tonight is Benny Onweremadu, who's from the Down Syndrome Foundation, Nigeria, and also Down Syndrome Foundation or Association in South Africa. As earlier on, I was saying to you that you can be part of this, and please join us in this conversation. It's a very important conversation. The telephone number to join us on will be on the screen, and I understand that the Twitter handle is what? Is at Down Syndrome SA, or Down Syndrome NG, and then Down Syndrome SA for Twitter handles, even to get us. And then the number is there, +27 11083 5378. Please call in and let's have your views around Down syndrome, and perhaps you might want some help and some support even from the work that people like Benny are doing, even for a very significant part of our population as Africans. Right, so welcome back, Benny.
Thank you.
So earlier, there you went off, then there you were telling us about even the work that people do generally around that. And I know you talked about sensitization, orientation. Let's talk about even the policies. Do we have legislation that takes care of people living with Down syndrome?
we obviously know the answer. I mean, if we're looking at the West African sub-region of Africa, if you look at East Africa as well, there is no good legislation that protects people with disability in general, not just Down syndrome in general, because we have Inclusion Africa, which has been running things to make sure that we have genuine legislation with AU. In South Africa, there's quite a good legislation that's working properly well for people with disability. But in Nigeria, we are pushing. Lagos State government is doing a great job, but we are also asking the rest of the states, in Nigeria, to try to emulate what Lagos State is doing to push good legislation for people with learning disability, not just Down syndrome as it is, But good policies will help, especially with families who are going through a lot of discrimination, and also providing good schools as well for people with learning disability and Down syndrome in particular. Yeah. So, you know, what a good legislation can do is numerous. From abuse and neglect and acceptance and all that can go a long way in helping families as well and our organization.
Let's talk about the 1K for Down syndrome thing now. Yeah. Which we have on the screen there. Yeah. Tell us about that. What is that?
This is we have an open help plan, which is what that is all about. Because if you look at it, it says empowerment and down educate, which is what we call out from Down syndrome education. Okay. And we have what we call also help for medical help. Because we don't have in Nigeria, I'm talking specifically for Nigeria at the moment, because we don't have concrete good facilities for heart disease surgeries and all that. Most of our kids, we take them to India for heart surgeries. So how do we get this done? We are not
financial point of view.
Exactly. Right. We are an NGO. We don't make profits. Yeah. So we depend totally on people's help and corporate organizations. Right. We've had good response, but we still need more because there are numerous kids who are waiting are on the waiting list for heart surgeries. Wow. And we really need, that's why the 1K is there to help.
1K is,
if you can donate 1,000, or you can, get your friends to donate, that would be amazing. I suppose the bank details is also there.
Let's have the poster again, the flyer again, so that we can have, that's the address there, that's the account detail there. Yes. So it's 1,000 naira, please, not $1,000. So don't get scared, it's 1,000 naira, and this is specifically focusing on those in Nigeria. Yes. In there. Yeah. Right. Okay.
And I would want to talk more on the empowerment because it's priority. Yeah. This is one of the things I personally I'll push a lot. Both every part of which is part of my jurisdiction.
We have a caller. Yes. Can we get the? Oh, okay. All right. So we'll come back to that now. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Empowerment, because every human being needs a job to survive. Right. If a child with Down syndrome or a young adult with Down syndrome, has finished school, he needs something to keep living, not to totally depend on the parents, because this is one of the things parents complain. How is my child going to survive without me when I'm gone? A child with Down syndrome or a young adult with Down syndrome needs a job.
At least for self-sustainance,
exactly,
independent, and even for the person's sense of dignity and self-worth.
Exactly,
that is needed.
Exactly. In Europe and even in South Africa here, we have placed people in a job. And they do their job very well. And you'll be shocked that people with Down syndrome do excellent jobs.
So, like someone says that that disability is not a mental one, it's not one that impairs productivity or
at all. We have numerous examples. There's a young girl in Venezuela. She started her own fashion designing company with the help of the family. Wow. And it's amazing how much she makes. And we have so many of them in the US who are actors. Wow. And another one is this. I have our man, Solomon, who is acting on the national TV in Nigeria at the moment. Okay. And, wow. So we are projecting these people that this is not a death sentence on a family, that this person has come into your life. It's a blessing. Don't see it as a curse.
So what we need is awareness.
Awareness.
Right. Okay. So I've got to let our guests go at this point in time, but we will do a follow-up on this, because I think it's something we need to keep reminding ourselves of what we do about persons who live with disabilities generally, and in particular when you look at the Down syndrome. How do we address it? How do we provide financial support? How do we get people empowered? Because I mean, by so doing, they contribute to the economy of African communities and countries. By so doing, they're not dependent on anyone. By so doing, their sense of dignity is further enhanced. And that's what we're called even to do as Africans. So I'd like to thank our guest, Benny, who's just been part of this conversation this evening. And say thank you very much for the work you guys do at the Down Syndrome Foundation, whether in Nigeria, in South Africa, and across the world. And of course, as partners at ADTV, the Africa Diaspora TV, we'd like to have more interactions in this regard. But thanks for making the time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. And so, Africa, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take a break now. And since we talked about fashion, you heard about someone living with Down syndrome who started a fashion show. We'll introduce our guests along the lines of that shortly after. So stay with us and we'll be right back after this time out.
ADTV, inspired to connect.
First Yoruba music and lifestyle channel Tiwa TV. Ṣoríṣiríṣi lẹ fẹ́ gbọ́ ni.
Èmi fino, bàbá Ibo, bàbá Bago kì mọ́.
Orin àsìkò.
Oya ṣakiti bọ̀bọ̀, ó fẹ́ ra bẹ́sí bọ̀bọ̀, ó fẹ́ ra
ìgbàlódé, orin mẹ́wàá tàbí orin àgbà. Lórí First Yoruba music and lifestyle channel Tiwa nìkan lẹ ti máa rí gbogbo bẹ̀bẹ̀rázì lórí ó wà ń bẹ̀. Gbogbo nǹkan tẹ́ ń tà lórí. All these full packages and more can only be given to you by your one and only 24/7 Yoruba music and lifestyle channel Tiwa TV. Ẹ ṣe bẹ́ẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ́mọ.
For more inspiring stories, make sure you follow us on social media. The handles are @AfricanD_TV for Instagram.